So it's touchy with the when it's first live like this. So I'm just gonna go to like the point where we get that Trek, the Star Trek thing.
Yeah, it should be around 20 seconds or so. Hello,
Yeah.
everybody, and welcome to PGS Trucks. I am your host, RM, and of course, we have with us tonight Julian. Julian, how are you tonight?
I'm doing swimmingly. How about yourself, RM?
Yeah, I am tired. So, yeah, guys, we're going to start at 20 seconds or so. Um, when Julian, do you happen to have your show ready to cue?
It is coming up. Remember, the indicia is a little weird depending on what you're watching it on. I've it says 5129 and 00, but I've got it at the Star Trek Delta with the ship has just ran through its whole thing with the nebula around it.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, let me see where that is.
It's
Because I
before.
don't, let me see if I can get to that point. I could reload mine. It doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Did you skip the recap?
No, I haven't even got there yet.
Okay.
My timer just it says 0. It's at 0.
It's at 0. Okay. All right. Mine is at, let's see if I could restart it at 0. Let's see. No, it didn't do it.
Yeah, it'll probably still be off. I think, depending on what platform you're watching it on. It puts it at a different time index.
All right. So then let's start at 0, and hopefully we'll be at the right thing. Hopefully it'll be at the right
Yeah.
time. Do I have the right thing here?
Do you see the deltas and the Star Trek?
Yes, it says skip intro.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have anything like that.
So have you, I mean, or do you have, does it just say Star Trek?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's at 12 seconds. So let me just advance this to 12 seconds and then we can start it at the same time. So guys, we're going to start at 12 seconds. I'm just running the clock up to 12, just so we're in the same time. All right, so I can't seem to get it on this one. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. I wonder if this is on that one. Maybe I'm on the wrong one. But okay, let's go ahead and press the start button so that we are both starting at 12 seconds, Julian.
Okay.
And we're going to press the button in 3, 2, 1, go.
It's always an exciting adventure to see how close we are.
It is. Get it started. Okay. Okay, so it's a CBS Studios production, Julian?
No, I see the ship in front of a buoy.
Yeah, that
Probably
is it.
Starship.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the right point, guys. Oh my goodness. Okay. Did she call him the ill-shapen?
Yeah.
She's a little too happy when she said that. She is pissed. Hey, Medallion, and hello, Tom Bartholdi. And do you seeing Star Trek Picard's sign now?
Yep. Part 6.
And hello, Darth Plato. Tom Jr. Jackson, hello to you. Hope you all are well tonight.
Good to see y'all. Or at least your messages.
Yes. Hello, Mike Folderoff. Oh, thank you, Glenn Mark, for the 550 New Zealand super chat. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
What is it? Terminal diagnosis? Oh my God. I don't believe it. Hey, King Tannic, how you doing tonight? And hello, Donnie. Is this you, Robert? It's got to be Robert. love it. I love
Good to hear from you, Robert.
Oh my god. It does move you forward, Donnie. Just if you go by the clock that's on the screen, that's exactly where we're at. And I hope for you too. Oh, Tom, the opening was mind blowing. I can't even believe what we just heard. This is nuts. The chemistry these two have is unbelievable.
Oof.
See you later, Glenn Mark. Thanks so much for the super chat. Yay! Permission granted. Yeah. Yeah, I'd give him a hug too. Mhm. Is she wearing like a leather jacket?
I can't tell, but it's the same cut that Ro Laren was wearing.
Yeah, it looks cool. Mhm. Ah.
I think I'm a few seconds ahead of you.
Oh, okay. It's funny. Yeah, we know that's not true. It is getting lighter. I think as the episodes progress, the episodes will get brighter and brighter because of we're learning more about what's going on. I think that's my theory. Come on, everybody's bringing their drink with them.
Starships with a traceable payload. One hit, if he doesn't kill us, we'll be able to track the residual automatic energy as we flee. True to force. Ready to run before they realize who's in their strike. Short of being invisible, we can't come back. Not until they're able to attack us. Look, listen. From company and you, I've had an idea. The whole Chevy and Force 8 and 5. I don't think that's a good idea. Starship security will be patrolling this area in less than an hour. And we'll do that. All that is more, I promise. But let's not achieve. I think we need to go. Boys, get us out of here nice and warm.
Lousy shots.
Exactly how this story began. Section 31 critical division of studies.
Nice. No, didn't see that coming, Donnie. I did not. Oh my God.
Uh-oh.
Something's gathering information. It's got a built-in safety system. That's unusual.
This is the main plane.
Why would the crow be familiar?
I'm not sure yet. I can't remember.
Fascinating.
Hmm. Yay! I want to go.
This Klingon ship there.
Respectfully, sir.
That's great. Jordy, this is your very power down for all of British ships non-essential systems. Nanosecond my body do reconstruct it. I prepare the virtues, current professional handshake, for I'm comfortable, long and with
Oh,
I'm in the middle of my third minute start projecting to gather an entire fleet in one location for two. Not to mention the hundreds of my thousands of past my video of these ships and seeing the lake. Some of them it's going to notice that I'm doesn't.
Princess. I'll do it.
Cut it.
My father and I.
That's us in my color. That, then you, just I've told you, haven't just stop me. If you change this person, or right now, you will feel this time. Circling the world. You want me to upgrade them out of the Federation's most classified facility, which I'm assuming for the record they broke into. If you could just change ship's transformation, we could make a stop. Something somewhere else. You are in the way from the extra station. First of all, even now it's what that can't run to the timers without randomized starting security codes. And second, gentlemen, well,
Despite my father's projections, every ship is fully
Because they're AI, right, Julian?
yeah.
It's only a matter of time before it's most
so that's how that happens. Can someone explain why a 19th century fellow villain is guarding a 20th century black saint? Villain doesn't do justice to my request. And only reviews flaws seriously. Summons consistently. Same self.
You don't get that damn door. We are dead.
D5. What solvable puzzles you hold. You're on guard with expressions. Your physical scars. Not time to slap you all apart. Such pathetic old workers. A flash. Small for us for a tool? Yes. Yes, a madman, a saccharine soul, one that I cannot get out of my head.
Pop goes the weasel?
Uh-huh.
I'll need to let you work. I shared that 2 decades ago with a dear friend. One direct pro. Inspired to work on the army. With the intellect intelligence. But he couldn't whistle with a band. Best case scenario, worst case, a compromised junkie will come after my family. You know that. And if that happens, sure, there's nothing, which is fine. Back in the day when I chose to put my life on the line, you just know my daughter, I do nothing.
So sorry about this. You must have this.
Defiant.
This one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, which is that? Sounds insane, like
You too is not for what it drives.
Coincide. Once irritates me again.
It's found from the bottom of San Francisco Bay. The story goes on. It's good.
Oh.
This could not be all.
Synthetic
They copy everything you got to be true. It's meant, it's mine. Not now it's been unconfined. But since the ban,
looks like a sort of stuff that co-opted most of his unfinished work.
all things so now. Before I get to Picard, I go home. My intention is to live beyond my years, to become my own legacy. And I see in my final days, it wasn't just poor humanity, it was science. Because evolution is not an act of preservation, it's addition. Gee, into this new column will go. While before of war. And of course, a great deal of data. This time, with the wisdom of true human aesthetic of age,
You're not the only one, Thomas.
with the hope that in that totality, something, someone would rise to be the best of us.
The integration of personality remains special.
I think that God is going to be very kind. Mushkin. Really, talk about how respect all of the access.
I like that that's seriously. As long as I'm not you stay here, see you. It's really to say that you are unwilling to participate. But it's not true. It's just the way it is.
galaxy is at stake here. I've seen a corpse that looked just like me. I know what this change was good for. You need to leave that to start with. I am fine. You need to be thinking about us. But you're not listening to your interests. All the times you stood up for themselves, different times. No, Asia and I.
They don't know.
Robert. That is definitely Robert. And this one too.
On the run, jeopardizing future.
I'm on the run with my crew.
Your family.
Yes, they are. You taught me that. And I'm not scared to step up and help them. You are.
Ooh. Ooh.
You should protect Asia. Absolutely weak forces to take on those ourselves.
Absolutely.
Exactly, I believe so. We should find shore and strategize.
So I got Tim.
Just be clear. What is Friends have
Mm.
Let's reset our views.
She's entries for, shall we say, Meyer, possibly.
So, Starship is called an insane AI to defend its deepest secrets.
They're one of a kind, they're the one. Certainly more brilliant than anything else they can. Eclipse, science, recognize, which means
Sees everything that comes in and out.
he is not human. He is the man.
That's right.
Hey, that's that neural net.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that from the. Oh. That's right. That is interesting.
That's a really nasty place to be under the inside.
Sorry, are you sure you You stole that and taking device from mine. I would never deceive you. I would never steal from you.
Good idea, though, right?
Yeah.
Removing the device took an automatic security. Starfleet is good. How many I guess they just added to my tab. She is
Of course.
Yes, correct. And not losing. The information that is within him is key to this one. Translates and store. Tell the type of instead of words.
Correct.
They're ready to lock down the transport stick.
Only right now. 30 seconds.
Type or beam up.
We got it.
We're not gonna make it. Yes, you are. Get a friend out. I got this. Expose. Start the chip turning fire. The base of the list. Big quarter roll.
Just a few more seconds. There. Stay free. We've lost one transport signal, but I'm reading it now.
You bring over the look of the back now.
Dispatcher. Transport. You saved us.
Lost one for the guy. We have gained another. I will find him. I will bring him in my house. And fearful be the God, man or beast. Stands by them. I will leave you. So, away. Doing what my younger son done. I'm proud of him. So, yeah. I knew I had to go.
Everything that flashed is so easily as a kid. It's been done with me this month.
What?
This is data. Almost human.
Also, Tom,
Yes, I can tell. Different personalities. I think the information tell us what that is. So, see, seeing enough experience. I can't completely isolate the personality of the patients. Just don't know what. Is that you? Yes, sir. No, sir. I don't know, sir. It's not. No. What? There are many of ourselves inside this. Long voice. Something more different. You witness that can confirm. And I confirm. Correct. See malfunction. I don't know. I might explain it to you. But it appears to be changes may detect me. That would manifest. This is the life. Data can tell us what is shown. From the car. Yes, I'm here. I'm repeat. Can you tell us what was stolen from the car? From the car. Manifesting from the car. Is there a business flash?
Uh-oh.
I'm here. And soon. No. David, it is right. Can you tell us what was taken?
Wow. Uh-oh. Mm-hmm.
Oh, crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You will tell us that the fish have been all over the crushed like cattle.
She's so creepy.
What the?
Well, at least he knows now who has him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that goof for it. You really think after 35 years of loyalty that I'm gonna betray my friends?
Oh no. Oh no, 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 no.
Shit.
What?
Ah!
I admit I did kind of see that coming at the end. However, I don't even care. It was so damn good. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. Sweet.
God. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, gotta watch that one again.
Yeah. You're right, Robert. You're right. Hey, no problem, Jericho Leon. We were doing a live watch party of Star Trek Picard season 3, episode 6, which we just finished. And Donnie, we didn't say what happened. We're gonna wait a second before we say. We're just kind of absorbing everything and listening to the music. And just like many of you, I think that Thomas's comments about I'm so watching this one again is what we all will be doing again and again and again. We knew Geordi was coming, but full force like this. We knew characters were coming, but boy, the way that they brought them in here, Julian is just so amazing. It's just amazing.
Oh man. When Seven brought up the Voyager, man, I just couldn't handle it.
Yes, because nobody ever shows you Voyager, right?
Well, it's just her feelings for it just really came through so well. They got me.
Well, it's true. She kind of did grow up on that ship,
Yeah.
when she came on board initially. She wasn't even like, a living entity. She had to learn what it meant to be. I'm not going to say human, but just even to exist without the collective, I guess is more
Yes.
trying to say. And it was rough going. She's
with a new collective.
Yeah, she's dramatically different from when we first saw her, where she was very detached and almost as if she was still part of the collective when she first came on board. And Janeway was like the perfect icebreaker to it all because her personality wasn't so strong. Janeway's personality wasn't so strong that it overshadowed or made 7 of 9 struggle less important or it could have been a situation where Janeway kind of overpowered everything, but she let 7 of 9 be who she had to be and have those experiences. I remember there was one episode where 7 of 9 was told that she couldn't have a relationship because the electronics in her brain would stop her from having higher emotional thoughts. And I was like, this is garbage. This is bullcrap. Why can't she have like her, I just thought it was so brilliant to kind of, there has to be repercussions for her to have those things. And of course, those things have been worked out by now. But I think it was very interesting, even to the point, and you remember the episode where the collective was able to help them heal people, who had injuries and things like that. So it really was spectacular seeing those ships there. I want to go to the spaceship museum.
Don't we all?
I want to go. Yes, Robert, you were telling the truth. Certainly amazing. Everybody says so. Yep. Darth Platos has got to hand it, Rob. Yes, Robert, you were right. This is 100 times more than what I possibly could have imagined or expected. This is well beyond what I even could have contemplated we were going to get this season. And it's so refreshing here. Robert says, Tom's correct. This is the 4th time I've seen the episode, and I keep crying. The 7 Jack
Yes,
the starships. Yes, absolutely.
killed me.
Jerry Ryan has been so incredible in that scene. Julian, what are some of your thoughts?
There was a lot of emotional stuff happening. Just everything. Between getting Geordi and his daughters together, coming on and pulling data, and yeah, just it's coming together wonderfully.
Absolutely. It is coming together wonderfully. And as I said, the scenes get brighter and brighter. This is my theory. As the season goes on, we're going to see where the episodes get brighter and brighter in light, because we're getting more information. It is wonderful for them to go back onto the Daystrom. I didn't know the Daystrom was still intact. So for some reason, I thought, you remember when they got there was damage to the station, if I remember correctly. So I'm thinking, how are they going to go there and even do anything? Maybe I was wrong about the damage, but it was nice that they could go there and retrieve what may or may not be data. And I knew when he said Jean-Luc Picard, that's what they took. Somehow I managed to get that, but I couldn't really understand how or why there would be remains of Jean-Luc Picard on the Daystrom. Did they exhume his body? What happened? Julian, how did his remains, or any of his remains, get there?
I don't know, because I can't remember exactly what happened at the end of that atrocious first season. So I tried to erase it from my memory.
Well, these are experiments on the Daystrom station, which they said was one of the highest guarded star fleet or star, Federation locations, stuff that, no one wants to talk about. We saw that terrifying Tribble. That's what I'm going to call them. Not at all what I was expecting for the little furry, sweet little creatures. And Tom is talking about he wants it on Blu-ray. Absolutely. Donnie Pearson says it's priceless. Darth Plato says, honestly, the best scene is Geordi one-on-one with his kid. Yes. And telling Jack to leave his daughter alone. I just love it. Mike Fedorov says, Falderoff says, Moriarty wasn't quite what what was expected. Yeah, it was a little different. I do like the twist. Julian, what did you think about that sort of being a gatekeeper? How on earth did a gatekeeper like that end up at the Daystrom?
Well, if they're dealing with all the data of the datas, so to speak, they have all that in there, and so it's like Riker said. Oh, the Crow and Moriarty and the Tune, it was all coming from data, so it's natural and interesting that he was trying to, like they said, he was trying to communicate in a way with them by showing them stuff that they would know that he knows.
Yeah, and a lot of people are very teary-eyed from this episode. Julian Efren says, "What an episode!" Thomas says, "So amazing, so damn amazing and emotional." Indeed. Tom mentions this has to be the best reason to use Picard. Being a synth, showing Kirk's Enterprise made me tear up. Yeah, it was very emotional. Certainly, yeah. Thomas Bertoli says, "Damn, didn't expect Moriarty, Geordi, and Data in one episode." Yeah, I agree. It really was unbelievable. Seeing the Starship New Jersey was strange yet exciting. The Defiant tube. Donnie Pearson says, "I love a new Data." It's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable, guys. Thank you so much for joining us here. Yes, Harrison Wells says remains the way that they probably the same way they have Kirk's remains. Thank you, Harrison. Thank you. I didn't know that. It is interesting. Maybe they couldn't just leave his remains in an ordinary grave for fear that someone would take them. I don't know, but it is something to think about. One of the most brilliant minds in strategy. You don't want anyone having access to what might be there. But, there's so much has been done to Picard at this point. I don't even know what's status it is. But yeah, Efren says, besides the Tribble, what was the other ones? Yeah, it's a good question. It looked like there might have been a Borg one. I'm not sure, but it looked like the internal skeleton, maybe the spine and stuff. That's what I'm going with, Efren. I don't know. Geordi was being a dad, Tom says. Yeah, definitely. I have a feeling, Tom, that will happen for sure. Maybe Robert will do that.
That'd be awesome.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. New data, new abilities. Um, so that's definitely going to be happening, I imagine. Geordi outbreaks. Right, I didn't know that. But certainly something to think about. Yeah, this has just been so spectacular tonight. And we know it's Vatic, which was interesting. I kind of saw the Deanna thing coming. I don't even know if it's her. It could be a shapeshifter. So I wouldn't personally know how to respond to what she's doing. And you also makes you wonder how many other officers have been kidnapped and subjected to this, thinking that it's their loved one, Julian. Do you think it's really Deanna?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I'm pretty sure that there's gonna be some sort of personal moment type thing that is gonna be, and he's gonna realize it's not her or something like that. I could almost that scene from Blade Runner 2049 when they try and tempt Deckard with the Rachel replicant, and he's like the color of her eyes wrong.
Yeah. It's something to think about. Logan Gawain says the USS New Jersey is because Metalis is from New Jersey. And Kenneth Colton says, wow, talk about getting the band back together. No wonder Rob is in tears watching this season. Yes, absolutely. So many good comments. Arvel Whitaker says, as soon as Jack gave that mischievous look after seeing the bounty, I started laughing. I knew what he was going to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Yes, Deanna, absolutely. Is it her or isn't it, right? And so many great comments. I think it's a shapeshifter. Thank you, Thomas. A 10 out of 10, someone says. Yeah. Doomed, huh? Says, at the beginning, Vatic told her crew to find anyone connected to Picard. So I think it's really Deanna. Good point. Doomed. Very good point. So, yeah, Donnie Pearson says, I must boldly go. Thank you both, Autumn and Julian. Till we meet, may you and yours live long and prosper. Absolutely, my dear friend. I can't even do it. I'm so tired.
No.
And Tom says,
thank you, Donnie.
Rob was so damn right. Is it real or is it Memorex? Well, that's going back. Certainly, Julian. They keep getting better and better. Gosh, I don't even know what to say anymore.
Yes, they're certainly enjoyable. So it's consistently good. I think that's my feeling anyway. So,
and thank you, Tom. Guys, please do subscribe to my channel, Positive Fandom. Thank you, Tom. And also subscribe to Tom Jr. Jackson's channel as well, which I think he's going to put in there. Yeah, Darth Vader's like, yeah, just say damn. It's
damn.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Efren, it's not that the two, it's like comparing apples to watermelons. You cannot compare the two. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah. And guys, Julie and I are going to be doing a show at 11 p.m. on Friday to wrap up this particular episode. We're going to talk about it once we've slept. And hopefully, we can kind of get our minds functioning to full capacity. Right. It's just too much. It's so much to absorb. And it's just so wonderful to see Geordie and his beautiful daughters in this episode. I just feel so happy for him then that character gets to have that here in these episodes, and seeing, how wonderful the girls are. Tom Jr. Jackson says, check out Tom Jr. Jackson's channel and subscribe. Absolutely, guys. Go ahead and subscribe to Tom Jr. Jackson. Let's support other creators. Yeah, Robert's like, come on, kids. I had to sit on this for 8 months. Robert, I don't know how you did this. But thank you for not spoiling it, because I don't like spoilers, Robert. Thank you for being Mum's the word on such a spectacular season. Such a spectacular season so far. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no wonder you were going crazy and just so enthusiastic, and truly you couldn't reflect it in words what we're experiencing now. I think we're all kind of confirming, hashtag Robert was right, or whatever you want to call it. There was no way to describe this in words. I think this guy says 8 months of hell. I would have been terrible to spoil the surprises. By the way, it gets better. Oh my gosh, no, I can't compute, like my brain can't even process this information, Robert. Yeah, thank you. Gosh, this has been, yeah, thank you, Terry, Metalis, and the entire crew, honestly. Yeah, Thomas says he's so I'm sure it does. I'm just so I think we're all so emotionally blown over by this. I can't even speak, Julian, and like I do this all the time. Like I speak about different shows, but this one I don't even think I can describe how profound this feels. It was such a long time that we waited for this, like almost 12 years or how much ever time it's been. Um, wow, what a way to get this. And it's not even just, one or two episodes. It's an entire season of amazing, Star Trek, amazing technology, amazing performances, amazing actors, amazing writing, these relationships that we're getting to see, the growth of the characters and their families. This has just turned into such a beautiful season so far. Gosh, I don't want it to end. I don't want it to end.
The consistency so far, has been just chef's kiss. It's been wonderful. And with Rob saying, yeah, it's going to be, it just keeps getting better. And I'm just like, I can't imagine. I mean, I can and I can't. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So, I look forward to, I'm just like, I can't wait to see the next episode. And it's so nice to be able to watch an episode of Trek and go, what's going to happen next? I need the next one. And instead of going, well, they did that, it's been so frustrating,
Robert, it has been frustrating. And Robert, I can't wait to talk to you about this on Friday. I guess after I speak to Julian about it on Friday, because it is effing incredible. This is so, it is, I'm just showing. Kenneth says, wow, that's a bold statement, Robert. And Thomas Bertoldi says, we are all emotionally in awe. Efren says, I'm intrigued. Yeah. Someone's talking about the female changeling leader from DS9 still being incarcerated. Jack and Seven, yeah, they have a lot of chemistry. Gee, the whole crew seems to have this incredible chemistry together. And it's as if they've worked with each other for years, not sort of just met each other maybe a few months ago or however long this time period is. Yes, LeVar killed it. Efren, yes, and Jack being this fanboy over these, like, it's so nice to see this, because it's not a criticism, but
aren't we all ship fanboys?
Yes, it's not a criticism, but at the beginning of the show, when they're at the bar and this woman's like, "Oh, the nobody likes those models because they're bigger," like they're too big. And it's like, what? So it's nice to kind of see, that sort of thing, and I'm sure, it just really was yeah, it was emotional seeing her talk about that. Yeah, I just, yeah, I'm a Jack and Sydney shipper.
Jack me?
Absolutely. And yeah, Robert, I can't even say it. I just want to point out to the writer of tonight's episode is on our Picard after show tomorrow at 8. So guys, make sure you
Awesome.
check out the Curling Caicos. Am I saying it right? Julian?
Curly and Nascos, yeah.
No, I'm not. The Curly and Nascos. Well, it is 3:30 in the morning. Guys, remember Robert's gonna have his after show tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Or is it tonight at 8 p.m.? It's tonight.
Well, by now it's tonight.
Yeah, it's tonight. So for Robert, it's tomorrow night. But Thursday night at 8 p.m., guys, right here on Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gee,
No.
is it?
No. 8
It's
p.m.
11
Pacific.
Eastern Standard Time. Yeah,
11
okay.
Eastern.
At 8 p.m. Pacific. Sorry, guys. Okay, it's really late.
So that would be, I think he's talking about, is that Dan Liu you're talking about, Robert? I saw it on the podcast the other day when you were on there. Yeah, today.
That's going to be a fantastic show indeed. I feel like I should have sent Robert the link because he is here. I didn't know he was going to be available or even up right now, but
Robert's always up right now.
I don't know because he's busy, you know what I mean? So let me just copy it and send it to him if he's awake. If he wants to come in, maybe I could just go ahead and send him that from now on if he wants to come on to the show. Which I doubt that he will, but I'll just send it out to him. But yeah, this was so profound. I was not expecting this. I'm stunned. Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to send him the link from now on, but I sent it to him now. Oh, he said he will. Really? Okay, Robert, I emailed it to you, and I also sent it to you in Messenger. Wow, this is very unexpected. Robert, you're going to come on one of my shows. Oh, my God. He says, I'm less busy now. Okay. So join us, Robert. We'll extend this because I kind of feel like this might be one of those turning points in the show. We have different arcs. Julian and you and I have kind of been looking at this, and everybody has been looking at this. And yeah, it's just so amazing. I sure hope I sent him the right link. It's late. So yeah, I can't, Julian. There's so much in it that is. I just can't even function.
Even if so, here's the thing, though. If they stole Picard's mortal remains, I guess, what is their plan? What are they going to do with it? I mean, what is it that they could do with it? I don't understand.
Would it give them a better tactical advantage? I don't know.
Seems like
well. Welcome, Rob.
What are they going to do with it?
How are you?
Hang on, I have to turn off your actual live feed I'm watching on YouTube.
Okay.
So now.
Oops. Oh, where did he go?
Yeah.
Wait, maybe he'll come back. Yeah, this is the first time I've had. This is just so unbelievable. This episode, Julian. And I'm sure Robert will come back in a second. He's working on his computer. There he is.
It's so weird. This is so. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you look behind me,
yes,
lights are changing. There's there's all kinds of stuff changing here in the Rob Observatory. It's not just a flat white background. And by the way, I have an actual spotlight that's going to be streaming onto the band.
Oh my God.
Oh, there's changes are coming, and you're a big part of that, and It's all good. But now, finally, my God, you have no idea how freeing it is. I feel like I'm Rob Burnett. I'm a Picard season 3 addict. I feel like I should be. I haven't been able to say.
Hi, Rob.
Thank you. It has been so difficult. So difficult to not talk about this, but I didn't want to fuck it up. I didn't want to, make sure that I would never. No one knew Ro Laren was coming, and this season or this episode, you know what's really funny? This episode is a perfect example of how you do member berries correct. I hate that term. I mean, this show has a continuity. It's in the Star Trek universe, and what this show is doing, and I wish people would still people are calling me. I mean, I'm being called a sexist and a transphobe for liking this season because I had early access, or I'm like I got early access on my own. It's all, and I made friends with some people that I didn't know because I was so enamored of this. And here's the thing. You don't have to believe me. The proof is in the pudding. And you watch this episode is a yarn. I mean, of all these episodes, it's almost a single, it feeds into the larger narrative, but as a single episode, what a rousing adventure. And you have Geordi's daughters. I mean, and Geordi mirrors what's going on with Picard and Jack, and it's so. And as if people don't know, his other daughter is actually LeVar Burton's actual daughter in real life.
Yeah.
And when they steal, can I say this?
Yes.
They steal the cloaking device. Come on.
So good.
I mean, it's everything in this, and the Jack 7 scene. Everything in this episode is all character, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun, and there's going to be people that, you wasted Moriarty, but when you realize it's Data's memories, and the going back to Encounter at Farpoint, to the very first episode of TNG, and yet he he glitched when the security system that he was running saw people he knew, and then it changed its tactics or whatever. I mean, it's really clever. And I think when, nowadays genre fans are always looking to nitpick, everything in this episode in particular, there was even a reference to the M5 computer from the Ultimate Computer in the Star Trek episode, The Ultimate Computer, from the second season of the original series. William Marshall, Blackula himself, who played Dr. Richard Daystrom, who created the Duotronic computers that ran all starships. There's a reference to that in this episode. It's so well done. It's so well thought through.
Yeah, it is absolutely the perfect combination of a tribute, perfect combination of reunion. And it is so satisfying, as I was saying before, to see Geordi with his family, and it's completely natural. They are absolutely amazing together, incredibly talented family. And it's so wonderful to see that. I mean, seeing LeVar Burton tonight, it's just been so wonderful to see his introduction, and it's just amazing.
And how great is he? His acting is so good.
Yeah.
And, when he has his conversation with Sydney and she hands him the hydro spanner, if you're an Empire fan, and she says, I crashed ships because I wanted to be closer to you. Come on. I'm like weeping. And Miss Chestnut, I have to tell you, I mean, I'm too old now, but my God, what a heartthrob she is to me. Am I not shipping Jack and Sydney? Come on. Aren't we all?
Absolutely. There's definitely sparks flying there. Of course, everybody understands when Geordi says, stay away from my daughter. It's not.
And how great was that? Was hilarious.
It was it was. But Robert, it's so amazing because there was no way to describe the season in words, Robert. You just could not go ahead and write an article about this. This is one of those seasons. It's very clear that you have to experience it by watching. And now I understand why you were so insistent, even upon the most skeptical fans. Just give it a chance and watch this, because this has been some of the most mind-blowing experiences I've ever had. And I'm always talking about how we need to see these sort of emotional relationships, realistic responses between people in who interact with one another, where we see that and we keep getting this over and over again. We're believing in these characters because they truly have intimated what was down on the paper in a way that, just is breathtaking. It's incredibly emotional, and what they're dealing with, what they're having to go up against is incredibly dangerous. I mean, they don't even sway away from that. As professional officers, we're seeing just such incredible work ethic and all the things we would expect from Star Trek over and over again. We're also getting a lot of situations where, and they kind of made a joke about it, 7 of 9 complimented Jack for his sort of flyby comments, but you kind of need that to keep going in these dangerous situations, and also to keep the audience engaged as well.
But Star Trek was always about that. Like the thing about great characters that you like, is even in the worst situations, humor, even dark, sardonic humor, prevails. I mean, that's what we are. That's who we are as people. And what I love so much about this show is I love these people. I love them all. I love LeVar's daughters. I love Geordi. I don't think he's ever been better written than he was written in this episode, when he explains to Picard why he can't help. Because I went out in the galaxy, I never worried for my safety, but I have 2 daughters and I worry for theirs. This is great stuff. This is really great writing. And we joke about the Fast and Furious franchise being about family. But this whole season is about what does it mean to leave a legacy to your children or to the people that you love. And it's really interesting. And Picard's syndrome, aromatic syndrome that he's left to Jack. Or is it aromatic syndrome? Who knows? But I'm just saying, I mean, what do we pass on to the people we love? Yeah. All I can say is what's so great is this is episode 6. We're four more episodes in. It just gets really more interesting.
I don't want this season to end, Robert. Please tell me that we might possibly, I know, but oh man, it's just so good.
It's in the hand of fate.
Look, I mean, I'm not gonna say, I have a big fucking mouth, and it has been like, for me, I'm like Worf. I had to become a Zen mouth closer. Like I had to be like, and I can drop, hints, but it was, and even Terry Metalis is like, you're not going to spoil anything, are you? And I'm like, no, because I would be branded forever. By the way, there are Star Trek channels that didn't get access. I mean, I didn't even think about this, to the first 6 episodes. So a lot of people have only seen the first 6. They haven't seen the back 4. Mm-hmm. But there are people that are branding me a racist, a sexist, a transphobe. I didn't even know this, and I was like, I would ask everyone to watch the Popcast guys. We did a great interview with Matt. It was one of my favorite shows I've ever done, because he and I spoke about what it's like to make television, and I thought it was really great. But they told me afterwards, they're like, there's a whole schism in the Trek YouTube community about you.
Is that Matt who you've got coming on the show?
No. Matt was on. No, I've got Christopher Monfett, who is the co-executive EP, but he wrote tonight's episode.
Yeah. Okay, got it. I get them
And
mixed up.
and I first of all I've streamed with him before. I love this guy. He is a big horror fan. He wrote Hellraiser comics. And what's so great is for me personally, I've got to meet a lot of these people, and they're wonderful people. You know, it's not just Terry who's a wonderful guy, but all the people that he brought in to work on this show. And I knew Drexler and the Akutas and all that. And, you know, I'm trying to get more people to be on the after show. But I have so many questions for Christopher that I held my tongue. I'm going to ask him because this is the most member-berry, fanboy, Star Trek history. There is so much
porn.
shit.
Yeah.
This is the most member-berry porno episode ever. But yet, it's a member-berry episode done correctly. I mean, come on. They stole the cloaking device off. I love the fact they're like, we couldn't find the bounty when it sank in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, because the cloaking device clicked on. That is so great. That's like some canonical detail that's so awesome. And the fact that the M5 computer from the Star Trek episode, The Ultimate Computer, that destroyed starships and killed many people, is stored at Daystrom. I love it. It's so good.
It is amazing. And, you know, I'm still kind of in shock of what we're seeing, because even though we saw the panels and we knew that we were going to be going to this Starfleet Museum, or, you know, Federation Museum, whatever it's called, I don't think there was any way to kind of describe what we were actually getting, because
I wasn't going to say like Kronos 1 from Star Trek 6, the Defiant, the Bounty. I mean, there is so many, but then but what it becomes is, here's people, I'm sure the anti-Picard. What's so funny is the people that love like Discovery hate me. They hate me. The online people hate me. And I'm like, these are when you find out that Jack Crusher is a Starship porn kid. He's like a kid that loves fast cars. He's like, oh, that's the Defiant. You know, that's the Bounty. And when he says, he looks at the refit, my favorite Starship, and goes, the Constitution class. I'm a Constitution man myself. And they're on the Constitution, or the Neo Constitution, but they're on the Constitution 3 class ship. He's on that ship. And so when he's telling 7 of 9, the hottest woman ever, and she's a Borg, and he's like, look at those starships. He's not looking at her. And then she's the one that's like, there's the Voyager. And I love the fact that he doesn't know. Why would he? Because he was a kid. Mm-hmm. He didn't like kids who hadn't seen classic movies. He's a child who didn't know the Voyager's voyage. He wasn't born yet.
Other than when Seven took the Titan out of space dock, and that got me emotionally. But then when she was talking about the Voyager, I had tears.
Bro,
like,
I cried twice.
Yeah.
I keep crying in this show, and I'm like, it's so, people look at me and they think I'm crazy. But it's because they've done the work. They've done the work. And
yeah,
I mean,
you holding this stuff in and not saying, to quote a famous character, you've done a man's job, sir.
Well, Gaff is a good man, but here's the thing. I couldn't fuck it up for everybody. As much as I might have a reputation for being a spoiler, I would never want to spoil. And what's funny is, even this is the fourth time I saw this episode, and I was more emotionally impacted by it now than I was, because when I kept watching it the first 3 times, I was very analytical about it. Mm-hmm. But now I've been able to sit back and be like, and I can enjoy it for what it is, and I let it just flow through me, and it's amazing. I mean, and this episode is so good, and the whole thing about Riker losing his son, Picard finding his son, Geordi having his daughters. Yeah. The idea of family and what we leave behind and our legacy. It's so well done, and I would hope. It's frustrating to see a lot of people that aren't on board, and I'm not saying you don't have to love it, but the criticisms are increasingly becoming more unhinged as it goes along, because clearly there has been a lot of real thought put into this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Julian.
Yeah. Well, I'm just the few review shows that I've seen that are fairly critical. I mean, they'll look for plot holes, like or something. They'll just call it, we're recycling plots from this and recycling
But they're not.
Yeah, or why are we doing that trope again? Blah 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 blah. So they just don't.
Well, when they're calling it a trope, they don't even think about the fact that the 7th season of TNG, we met Geordi's mother, and the idea of family has been the very, and here's what I think people forget. The very idea of TNG that was revolutionary in Roddenberry's mind is he said, okay, this ship, the Enterprise D, it was on a 15-year mission. So families were a part of the Enterprise D makeup. And Picard, if you go back and watch Farpoint, Picard says, I am uncomfortable around kids. And Mr. Riker, I need you to help me along with this. I have a problem dealing with this. And that from the and people forget, because I hate to say it, fandom is dumber than it's ever been, because they're not watching with open eyes. And it's frustrating to see people that don't consider what the Next Generation was about from the very beginning. And the idea of Picard saying, I'm uncomfortable with kids. And they're playing out the fact that from the very beginning, and how great was it to see clips from Farpoint in this episode? To see Riker and whistling, pop goes the wing, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's so well done. And you know what? I almost feel like we have to create a manifesto that fandom has to be smarter, and they have to, like, watching this show. If you're a Star Trek fan, are you really? Are you going to complain about stuff because? And I'm not saying that I'm the fan you have to emulate. Although I did spend 3 years making documentaries about the Next Generation, which you can watch and buy on the Blu-rays. But if there's one thing, if I ever got a PhD in Star Trek or something, I don't say these things lightly.
Yeah, and it really meant a lot to me to see Seven talk about Voyager, because I watched every single episode of Voyager, and I never really knew how she felt about the ship and her experience. This is the first time I'm seeing her talk about how important and how that place was like a home, and and as I was saying to Julian,
How great was she saying it?
Yeah.
Her delivery.
Yeah,
It
was
Jerry Ryan's been kicking ass in this season, just on top of it.
She really has been. And I think a lot of times when we watch some of these shows, we don't really know, it took her maybe 20 years or how much ever time to realize that she was lucky to be on that ship on Voyager with a crew who pretty much, accepted her more or less and protected her.
Yeah.
And she grew. I'm not going to say she was an infant, but she was like a child when she came onto Voyager and grew up and became, more of a human being. She wasn't allowed to do that before that. So although she was a grown woman, there were a lot of things that she had to learn. And I thought it was very creative way to show that. But, I even think giving, Janeway some street cred for that, for being able to kind of deal with Seven. It was not easy to handle what came along with that, what the responsibility of having someone like that on your ship. And, for her to have such sweet and dear memories of Voyager really was touching.
And also the way they do it, like, I love the fact that when she was pressing the buttons on the L cars, there were the schematics of the ships. And, when she hits Voyager, you hear the na 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 na. I mean, it's so, and what I find very interesting about all this is this was a show where the writing staff really understood what they were doing. That they're creating, on one hand, a Tom Clancy, Crimson Tide, Hunt for Red October techno thriller. Within, excuse me, the Star Trek franchise. And a lot of people are like, what? And I don't think they see what's going on.
Well, for the first time in a long time, Julian and Robert, I can kind of see a future for the franchise. And I can't always say that I've felt that way in previous, say, shows or movies. This one, I can see a future with the children in the episode even, and see how they could continue on. I think it's just such a lovely setup of, what we're seeing, kind of Jack is wearing the Starfleet jacket. And I think it was leather, Julian. I think it was someone had a
I
leather.
think it was. I think Raffi's jacket was.
Yeah,
Certainly looked like it, or it was a faux leather, but it looked cool, and I want one.
yeah.
I think at this point I can say that when you get to the end of this series, the voices that want a continuation of this are going to be loud. I'm not going to say why or how or what, but I will say this. There's a post-credit scene in episode 10.
Oh
All I'm saying. And everybody is going to, by the end of this season, by the end of episode 10's credits, and by the way, I would also like to say, wouldn't you like to see this in a theater? Like in a movie theater?
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
If that's something you're interested in, I would say keep watching.
Oh my God, this is so good. I can't. Oh my gosh. I'm speechless almost.
I'm just saying that Terry Matalas, the showrunner, directed the last 2 episodes. And as I've said, this season has been structured like a movie, 3-act structure. Episodes 1 through 4 were part 1, or act 1. Episodes 5 through 8 were act 2. We're in the middle of act 2 now, so we have 7 and 8. And episodes 9 and 10 are the rousing conclusion. And if you guys ever wanted to see they put Yellowstone episodes in theaters. Who's to say Paramount Plus might not have thought, wow, if we have that rousing of a conclusion, maybe people would go see it in a theater. Maybe. Who knows?
I think I would definitely go to see it in a theater, no
I mean,
matter-
I saw episodes 1 and 2 in the theater, and they were amazing.
Wow.
It would be great if we could see something else in a theater. How crazy would that be? Like, for the public?
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know.
Don't get my hopes up so much.
I'm just saying, this show looks very good in a movie theater. It's very cinematic.
Oh my gosh. A lot of people have been talking about how fantastic, and I know both of you already mentioned it, but the music cues throughout the entire episode
Oh my God.
have been amazing. And some of them I know I've heard them before, but I couldn't tell you where it was from or which episode necessarily. But they certainly thought about that as well. A lot of time was put into making the tone of the music right. And that's also part of the experience. A lot of time we weren't necessarily getting that in the past, but now we're getting it here. And it does feel very natural. It creates a natural flow of what we would expect to see in an episode of Star Trek. So there is that. And this particular how should I say, plot is very interesting, but it did take me to get to this episode, let's say, where I'm absolutely fascinated by what's going on now. And, I could not have predicted that this was what the plot was going to be. Julian, do you feel the same way?
The mystery aspect of it has pulled us along, and it hasn't it definitely has a structure where you know that it's leading you somewhere, and it's not like a mystery type of thing where you're like, they definitely know where they're going, and we can feel that they know where they're going with it, and that it's leading there logically. It's not just making stuff up, so it's not a mystery box type of thing, and so they're handling that really well, and I just am enjoying it so much.
By the way, how great Michael Dorn had so many great lines, and so him and Riker, I mean, the comedy, they're Hope and Crosby on the road. I mean, they're so funny. Worf is so, I mean, first of all, Michael Dorn is the unsung MVP of the Star Trek franchise. From TNG to Deep Space Nine to where he is now. So good. And wow, I don't think he's. What's interesting, if you look at the cast, Patrick Stewart's 82, Brent Spiner and Gates McFadden are both 74, Michael Dorn's 70, LeVar Burton is the young man at 66, and they are bringing it, man. Their zest for I don't know how old Marina Sirtis is, to be honest, but their zest for living. They're breathing in. You care about these characters, but they're being written in such a way that they're accentuating who these, because in TNG they're archetypes. They're not the subtlety of character. They were written in a very specific way, and now we're seeing the real human elements of these characters. I mean, Jonathan Frakes is having the best time of his life on this show, and you can see it. LeVar Burton was finally given a great, I mean, the fact that he was always the guy that could barely get a date, but now he's got 2 daughters, and he gets to sit down with Patrick Stewart and have this great moment of acting. It's so good.
It is
so good.
It is amazing to see how they've been able to pull this together, and it did take a lot. This must have taken a lot of energy and time to make everything balance itself. And so far I don't see any real errors. I mean, this is nitpicking the show would be the last thing I would even think of, because there's so much that I have to go back and rewatch just to understand what's going on. This is rewatching it is going to be a pleasurable experience. A bunch of people in the chat talked about how they have to go and watch the episode again because you can't get everything all at once. There's even a scene in the beginning where when Geordi goes on to I think the 2 sisters and Geordi are on the bridge. Maybe Geordi wasn't on the bridge, but the sisters come out, and you can see Jack and Seven of Nine looking at each other. That look that you get after your parent is kind of angry at you, and you're, just like even subtle looks that you kind of need to see. I remember there was an episode in Star Trek where in The Next Generation where the captain said he doesn't need to verbally communicate with number 1. He can just look at him and he knows exactly what he's thinking. And this is another example of seeing stuff like that because it's natural. We want to see these realistic occurrences and things between people, and we're seeing a lot of that, and it's very satisfying to see because we know that's what would happen. This is 100% natural. There's nothing in here that feels forced or unnatural. I think it was very important for us to see that people have relationships and emotions, and we are experiencing all of it along with the actors and the characters here in the series. So that is something that I wasn't expecting to be experiencing, and the highs and the lows are very, very deep here. It's not anything you can kind of remove yourself from as you're watching this. This is it really does kind of pull you in here, and you become invested in this. It's just incredible what they achieved here, Julian and Robert. It's just I don't think I could explain it to someone. You have to watch this season. You have to watch it for yourself to experience it, because trying to describe it to someone, there's no way to really describe how good and the type of quality that we're getting from the season.
I know. No, it's been frustrating because and there's a lot of pushback, and rightfully so, because we've got a lot of. Here's the thing: the difference is that Terry Matalas, as a showrunner, knew what he wanted to do, and the thing is, believe it or not, you have these big franchises, and people get their jobs like, oh my God, we're going to make a show, but they don't have a vision, and they don't know what's going on. Then there's writers' room discontent, and people are. Terry hired people that he'd work with. He hired people he already knew what they could do. And they sat down and they were very diligent. And it was the creation of any TV show that works. I mean, I think Star Trek Picard Season 3 is a textbook example. And they're working amidst lore and amidst 57 years of history. And they're making it work. And they're making us feel it, which is astonishing. And they're I really think that this season is a litmus test of, and I'll say it, there is fandom that are fans that don't that cannot recognize when something is good or not. And then there is fandom that realizes that, okay, we've grown further. We can't like. You can't make a show about characters that are 30 years older that is exactly like the show 30 years ago. You have to take into consideration what has transpired during that time. And there's a lot of people that are not allowing for that to be part of they want a fealty to canon that was 30 years ago. But I would ask all of those people, where were you 30 years ago? And if someone asked you, what was your favorite record 30 years ago? Or where did you go on December 8th, 1998? Would you remember? And you'd be like, I have no idea. But it was your life. You won't remember that. And we're demanding fealty and I think great canon, real great writing with an IP. You have to be able to extrapolate and not explain the 30-year time gap. There's stuff that's going to happen, and you just have to. And if it feels real, like Gates, like Beverly and Picard, it makes sense when she says, here's why I didn't want you to be involved in my child's life. Because my parents died, my husband died, Wesley was taken by the Traveler, which you facilitated. I didn't want that to happen. Now, any rational human being can be like, okay, I buy that. I understand that. But what that's talking about is the human experience. And while it might not touch all of your buttons, in the show, it still works. It's not member berries. It's real emotion, real storytelling. And that's what I think this show has in spades. I really do.
Over your repeated viewings, have you seen new stuff?
Yeah. Yes.
Picked up. Yeah.
Here's what I've seen over the repeated viewings is how well it actually works collectively. Is that the themes that they were attacking, and again, they're very emotional. They're very humanistic. A lot of people watch genre programming to get the genre goodness because it's escapism. But for me as a kid growing up, Star Trek has always been a combination of those two things. It's about real emotion, real humanism, and sci-fi action adventure. Woohoo! I think this does that. The thing that I've loved about Star Trek my whole life that I wasn't getting since 2009, this season of Trek brings back to me. Because Trek used to age as I aged. The original series I saw at 5. Then there was the animated series 6 and 7. The next I was 12 when TMP came out. I was in college when Next Generation started. So Star Trek evolved and grew literally as I evolved and grew. And then in 2009, they're like, let's reboot it. I'm like, wait, why would you do that? And they've rebooted it badly because all the people that have worked on modern Star Trek are people that are second wave Star Trek people. They never took it seriously. Even Mike McMahon, who made Lower Decks, he loves Star Trek. But that show is about Star Trek fans. And there's some great stories in it. But everybody who's watching is like, oh, let me just show you how much. It's like watching Lower Decks is like going to a science fiction convention in 1982 where everybody tried to out-fan each other with their knowledge. And somebody said, I watched a YouTube video where somebody said that Lower Decks is a show about people who watch Star Trek as opposed to being a show that is Star Trek. And I was like, totally right. Because Star Trek's become, people think it's a funny thing. And what Star Trek really was, it's a reverential thing. And Star Trek Picard season 3, pardon me, I was thinking TNG because I've been writing these reviews. Picard season 3 is a realistic exploration of what our favorite characters are like 30 years after we knew them. And if you're a person that's grown up with them, it resonates, I think.
And is this season kind of giving us records of the most ships we've seen in a season, or things like that? I mean, I don't remember seeing this many ships, different types of ships in a season ever. Robert, do you know, or is it?
Oh no! I mean, look. Here's one of the things I asked Terry. I go, how did they let you show in the shipyard scene a Constitution class ship, an original TOS? Because what?
Bless you.
Thank you. One of the things I've hated is they've updated, when they decide to make new Star Trek, they have to update everything. And if you know your Star Trek, for the 30th anniversary of Star Trek, they did in 1996 the Deep Space Nine episode Trials and Tribulations.
God, that's a great episode.
And they go back to the original Enterprise, and they make it look in continuity. Well, there has been, I think, a fallacy amongst everybody that's created modern Star Trek that we have to give it a visual update. It's like, no, you don't, because you're dealing with a fictional future that's already been established. And by changing it, and this is why a lot of people are pissed, and you're changing it, and there's no singular vision. So every show is something different. Like, let's update the Enterprise. Let's give it triangular struts on the warp nacelles. None of that makes any sense at all. It's like, this is Captain Pike's Enterprise, and it doesn't look anything like it. We've seen Captain Pike's Enterprise in the 1966 two-part episode, The Menagerie. We saw it. So when you change it, and his Enterprise, you're like, okay, this isn't real, and I think the people that make Star Trek don't get it. This isn't real Star Trek, because we've been watching the Pike's Enterprise since 1966. And when you see that, we don't know what the USS New Jersey is. Maybe that's a reference even I don't know. But we see a Constitution-class ship, Kirk's ship, a real Constitution-class ship, and Jack's like, and he talks about, you see that, then you see the refit, the evolution. Basically what Picard, this episode, said was, fuck you to Strange New Worlds and Discovery, because none of you paid any attention to Star Trek history. And that's what when I said to Terry, I was like, how were you able to do that? And he said they weren't looking. Not only weren't looking, if they did look, they didn't know.
Oh.
They don't know the difference. And that's why people are like, well, what universe? Star Trek Picard Season 3 takes place in the prime, the original Star Trek universe. It absolutely does, I think.
Well, it's stunning what they've done with everything, Robert. And of course, Julian and I were talking about the uniforms, the sort of updated uniforms that they have. And
they look great, right?
They look amazing. Of course, we need to get these uniforms. I think it is pretty incredible what they've done so far. But It is more or less the same uniform for me. I
Oh.
mean, I'm looking at it and it's just maybe different colors and
But
everything.
it also seems real. Like things change, things update, and you have to make them look updated correctly. And I know that when and I hate to say it. I mean, people are like, I'm always filleting Terry Metalis, but Terry Metalis, if you haven't seen 12 Monkeys, 4 seasons, it's one of the great sci-fi shows of all time in terms of how well it's thought out. This show is really well thought out, and even the music cues, like you said, there's they're echoing themes. It's so well done.
I do want to ask. I think a number of people asked about the New Jersey, the ship New Jersey, and someone had said something about it having to do with Trek Online. Julian and Robert, I don't know that ship.
It is not part of the original 12 Constitution class ships that are canonical. However, I mean, for those of you who've watched the trailers, there's other allusions to Star Trek Online that are coming. So it makes sense. I think it's cool that they added this. It's still an original Constitution class ship, and it is. I mean, maybe they couldn't have used the Congo or the Yorktown, or maybe
Well,
'cause they
I
were-
thought somebody in the chat had mentioned that they said that Terry was from New Jersey.
Oh yeah. There you go. I mean, that's
So it was just one of those things, like Metalis Prime, even though the planet already existed from Enterprise.
that was an Enterprise reference, and I love that they did that. I mean, look, all I can say is that how do you not watch this show and not love Worf and Worf's interactions with Riker? I mean, come on. Classic TNG. So good.
Yeah, it really has been amazing, Robert. And Julian and I have been boasting and praising Shaw in all of this. How they kind of and Robert, you mentioned the age of many of these actors, but they certainly have been praising experience in this particular series. And they definitely need to have experienced officers here. This is one of the most difficult and challenging things that that the Federation has ever faced. So you don't necessarily want inexperienced officers, but there is something that's very interesting about this. When Michelle Yeoh won her Academy Award and all of her other awards, she had said something about don't ever let anyone tell you that you're past your prime. And very clearly here, we see that not only is as far as I'm concerned, let's say the next generation crew and cast not past their prime, but they're showing us that there's a future for this in a way that we haven't seen. And I just want to acknowledge 200 Watt Studio for the $2 super chat, who says just finished great episode. Kirk in Daystrom, which a lot of people are talking about what else might be in there. I think I saw someone say the Genesis item is in there.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, and the fact that Kirk's body was in there, if you've ever read the Judith and Garfield Reeve Stevens, if you guys love Star Trek and you haven't read Star Trek novels or anything, I cannot stress enough. The first 3 Star Trek novels that Shatner and the Reeve Stevens wrote, Ashes of Eden, The Return, and Preservers. Read those books. The fact that Kirk's body is in there is a direct reference to The Return. And those 3 books are so good. And they're collected as one yarn. And you'll read them and go, why wasn't this made into a movie? And I'll say because no one knows that those books even exist at the studio level, but okay.
And I also want to thank Dustin Cole for a $2 super chat as well, who says that it could just be a nod to the battleship New Jersey. And I love if that's the case. I would love that. I think that is such a touching tribute as well to see things like that. That's what we would expect to see in Star Trek. Those details, every single detail makes such a difference. Robert, last time when I was speaking to you I noticed that the episodes were getting brighter as the season goes on. Now we're on to episode 6, and it is much brighter. Julie and I were talking about it. Did you notice this as well, or is it just something that I'm imagining?
No, I honestly think that the way when I saw the episodes and the final time I watched it was on Blu-ray, I've always loved the way the show looked. The way it's been broadcast is terrible. And I think that honestly, there is a real problem. I know this because I work in post production. There's a real problem with the people that work in post in the understanding how things are supposed to look. And I think this show has been really underserved. And I would just say to people, when you get the Blu-rays, when you buy them on physical media, it's going to look very different. You're going to look at it and go, wow, this looks really great. And I thought this was for me too. I usually watch these episodes twice, one on my OLED, one on my plasma tonight, and I usually start by watching it on my computer screen. Tonight I'm sitting here in the Robservatory. I watched it on my computer screen, and this was the first time it looked correct. And I was like, oh, it finally looks the way that I've seen it 3 times. And the way it looked, I mean, watching the first 2 episodes in a movie theater in the Chinese, it looked incredible. It's so cinematic and so subtle and so well done. And it has been so horribly served on streaming. Really, really bad. Because streaming doesn't do well with dark. You make things dark, it's hard for streaming, the way things work, to delineate between darkness and light, especially when things are really, really dark. This show, I promise everyone, if there's one reason for you guys to get physical media if you like Trek, it's to buy this season on Blu-ray, because it looks incredible. I hope they release it on 4K, but I don't know if they will. But if you get a chance, and if someone, I mean, I don't know, next week's episode 7, so there's 7, 8, 9, 10, there's only a month left. Just keep an eye out, because maybe there might be an opportunity to see this, or at least an episode or 2 in a theater. Who knows? Maybe. I don't know.
It's like a dream come true, Robert, and we all are wanting to see this in the theater.
I know, especially episodes 9 and 10. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no information.
I would go to see it. I consider me purchasing the tickets right now. I'm incredibly excited for that notion. I'm incredibly excited to see where the future is for Star Trek, and I haven't been as excited about that in a while. I do see, just these remarkable performances. I think these younger actors, like Ed's I think it's Spieler.
Ed Speleers, yeah.
He really has brought a lot.
How great is he?
Yeah, and I've been watching him. I've watched him on Downton Abbey for years, and I loved his performances there. And I think that he just adds so much to the franchise here, really. And what's really funny about this, Julian and I have been watching the episodes together from the beginning, and I had a very unusual opinion about Jack, because he kind of was involved in some things that were kind of shady or whatever.
Yeah.
And I wondered if, because he did this, it put him personally in danger, because you expose yourself to different elements, maybe even criminal elements, when you do stuff like that. And we kind of see it backfired on him with someone turning him in. But I wondered, what is the deal with this man? And he's really turned out to be something completely different from what I thought he was in the beginning of like, let's say, the first few episodes. Very, very different person. I think that Beverly has done such a wonderful job raising this young man. And, he really does seem to be somebody who has ethics. But we're still, although this episode didn't focus on what he's going through, I'm not quite sure whether the visions were related to what he thinks he might have. But those visions, Robert, are terrifying. And it is something that I couldn't ignore. I don't know how he's going to handle that going forward, but it's probably something he has to deal with, right away, because I have a feeling it's going to hit him at a point where he's, it's most critical, where he has to kind of make a decision, and then all of a sudden it'll say, "Come see me," and then he's like, he can't function, almost to a point where it freezes him, where it paralyzes him and stops him from, being the person that he is. And Dustin Cole here for a $5 super chat says,
Thank
theoretically,
you.
if it did go to the theaters, would it only be in the big cities? I'm in a small town country boy, would hate to miss the theoretical possibly.
I would say that if a TV show goes to a movie theater, theoretically, it would have to be in bigger venues because it would be atypical. It's not something that would be, if it were to happen. That's all I can say. You'd probably, if in a small town, it's not a John Cougar Mellencamp idea. I'm just saying, I'm not saying anything. Who knows? Who knows if it would go into theaters? But if it did, it would probably go into bigger venues because, even this, remember, Star Trek is still a niche audience and they're treating it. But if they know, like, for instance, like just hypothetically, if you knew that your, say, final 2 hours, which is like a movie length, right? Or 90 minutes or whatever. Imagine if you knew that you'd created something where the final 2 hours were epic, like huge in scope and scale, and you thought, wow, perhaps people would go to a movie theater and watch this. What if they had a fan base that was 57 years old and who knows? I don't know. But imagine if somebody was thinking that, but in this day and age, you'd still have to put it in a venue where and a venue where you have a list of cities that have enough people that might show up for the couple. Because people are like, why should I go to a movie theater when I can watch it on TV? Well, if it was fucking epic, and what you were gonna get is fucking apocalyptic and wait, what? Huh? What? I'm talking out of my ass. Like maybe, if you had something where the stakes were huge and it was all amazing and the visual effects were incredible and what you were watching was like beyond what you can even imagine right now, going, I can't believe we went from episode 6. Oh, wait.
Well, 200 Watt Studio for our $5 super chat. Thanks so much for that. It says, any theories on why the bird of prey was left with its cloaking device intact?
Because it was a museum. Museums protect the sanctity of the art, the sanctity of the ship. The whole point was, in this day and age, who needs a cloaking device? Romulus has been destroyed. That was canonical in both universes, whatever you want to say. This is the bird of prey. This is intact, and the whole point about the cloaking device will be a thing. Here it is. Here's our classic cloaking device. Who would want it?
Well, there's been a huge focus on, let's say, old school tech in this season. Am I right? Meaning old school engineering.
Yeah, you are.
The cloaking devices, as you've just said, Robert. And we have another super chat here from just whatever from Ohio for a $20.
You can say dipshit, doesn't matter.
Says, another great episode. Can't wait for the next. We are
Same
all
here.
that. Yep. Just a chip from Ohio. I can't say it. I don't want to call him that.
That's a nice super chat too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A $20 super chat is very nice.
But I think that there must be some reason why. I don't know if what it's really saying is look at the history. They almost want you to kind of look at the history of how rich Star Trek is. And I think that, while it is true anybody could watch this season, even if they've never watched Star Trek before, I have to admit that there has been that focus on, I'm not going to call it retro technology, but they even do make a comment about how, the ship is a little bit tattered and torn, so I can't talk to you about the engineering on the ship. But I think it's interesting, Robert and Julian, that they chose to focus on technology that is not necessarily new. We do have the portal tech. I don't even know.
All I can say to you is the reason why I love you so much is because you're a very smart, very perceptive woman. And I think the question that you're asking, if you watch this episode closely, there might be things to discover that deal with exactly the question you're asking that might play out later.
Okay.
I think what you were asking is this is why I love you so much, because you're a very astute viewer. And all I can say is that based on what you just said, I would go back, maybe watch the episode again with what you just said in mind and think, where might that go?
Yes. And
Because there was something, I'll only say because there's something very specific that was referenced on this episode, and I would say very specific about how Starfleet works now, in terms of how starships work.
yes, and
how starships are discovered,
but
Cracked. Yes.
I mean, the three of us know, and everybody watching this knows, that the ships are their own artificial intelligence. So they're kind of at this museum. And the way I'm kind of looking at it is that they have to retire too, just like we do. So they're in retirement. It's a museum, but because I see them as, the artificial intelligence that they are, that's not just a museum, that's their retirement home. And I know that
yeah, that's very funny. I never thought about that, but yes. All I can say is that this show has many different themes that were very well addressed. And 200 Watt Studio with his $2 super chat says, I suspect the old unconnected tech is important. Is it? Maybe. I don't know. They did say that all the ships can recognize each other. That's why the Titan was easily discovered by the sentry ships that show up every hour at Daystrom Station. So
yes, and the idea that the ships are talking to one another just reaffirms to me that they're at this lovely retirement community, where they can they're kind of all docked, and they can talk to one another and look around, and they can look out into the cell. Well, this is what a ship would be doing. I have to tell you, this is what one ship would say to another. Voyager would say, well, I've been farther, just like as Seven has said, to more areas or farther out in the galaxy than many of you have. I've got to tell you about my experiences, just like any other retiree would start talking about that time when they had an experience. And I think it's very interesting. The idea that they do communicate. That's how I looked at it, is that they're talking to each other every day, just like we would. I think it's brilliant notion, and certainly maybe even a beautiful thing to see that they have one another. They're not sort of like by themselves.
You know what? After what you just said, I know this is going to seem strange to everybody. I have no comment. I'm just going to say no comment on that at all.
Well, Billy D.
Nope.
Williams for a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much. Says, I am so here for the show. Imagine if it was all like this. Imagine they'd be swimming in money. Absolutely. Because the first thing I'm going to be looking for is that leather jacket that Rafi is wearing. I've got to get this leather jacket, guys.
Oh my God. I mean, everything about this. I mean, come on. The art direction, the ships. I want all of it.
Absolutely. It's just been so amazing and just so enjoyable. But I think, when they show us something like this, if they're telling us this, and, who better than to take care of these ships than Geordi, who does care about what happens to the ships. And I think that it becomes something that's an incredible responsibility for him, because he knows their potential. They're not sort of, put in a dry dock necessarily. They're living. This is how I see them. They're living creatures.
Who knows?
Well, that's how I see them, and I know.
I don't know.
I don't know if anybody else sees it that way. but I thought that it was very, somewhat of a more sensitive way to look at things, because the ship is also going on the journey with them as they're exploring the galaxy. The ship
Yep.
is also having these experiences. So
All I can say is I'm going to ask Christopher Monfort tomorrow or today. I have the co-executive producer and writer of this episode coming on, and I would ask him all of these questions, and I encourage you to watch, because, I mean, to me, this is an episode of any show that member berries done right, because all the member berries go into the larger theme. There, and when you really realize what is being touched upon, I mean, the fact that Moriarty, the fact that you have Alton Sung has created this was going to be his body, how he retired, it was his retirement community, and he died before he could get into it. And it was going to be an amalgamation of all of the Sung androids, whether it was Law that Data created, or Lore, or Data himself, or, I mean, there's even a reference again to the M5 computer from the Ultimate Computer that was created in the original series. There's so much great stuff that all plays into each other. It's all, I can't wait to talk to him about all this, because, man, I have many questions.
And Dustin Cole for a $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Dustin. Says, and it was comparatively cheap to make. Was it?
Well, it's a bottle show. I mean, if you look, so on a television series, a bottle show is a show that's shot only on standing sets, which means you don't have to go out to a location to shoot something, which is incredibly expensive. So Star Trek has always been great at bottle shows, like the Doomsday Machine, where you have the Enterprise finding the wrecked Constellation. They duplicated sets. And so for the Constellation, they had their normal sets and they just made it look wrecked. They're not like in Shore Leave when they go shoot in the glade somewhere. They have to go on location. And it's really hard to come up with stories that are really compelling in when you just have Starship sets. But the genius of Picard Season 3 is they did the one thing that we all think about Star Trek is it's on a starship. And they've made this unbelievable, I call it a bottle season. And I think that television producers might be looking at Picard Season 3 as one of the great examples of how do you produce a TV show. Because, they were coming off of Picard Season 2 where they're in LA, we're going to shoot outside, and that's really expensive. So Terry redressed the sets. I've seen people go, why are they always in 10 forward? Why did they take this 10 forward set and put it on the holodeck and they keep going back there? Well, that was the Picard put that there, whatever. And what it does is you take a standing set that was built for Star Trek Picard Season 2 and you reuse it in a canonical way that works. And when you see it, there's a lot of people that make fun of that. And it's like, come on, man. You have to consume, you have to understand there is television production involved. So.
And 200 Watt Studio for a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. 200 Watt Studio says, I'd like to see an EMH Kirk piloting the Enterprise in the final episode.
Well, they don't, I mean, again, people would say like, oh, there should be an EMH everywhere. I don't necessarily buy into that, but that would be great. But I promise you won't. But I will say that the final 2 episodes are fucking amazing.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Tom Jr. Jackson says this was a fantastic watch party. Thanks.
I'll be right back. I have to pee. I'm just saying I've got to go.
You go ahead.
I don't know if you're gonna still be here, but I'll come back.
It's been such an amazing night, Julian. Certainly, as I said, I feel like this particular episode, we've kind of gone from one realm to the next in this series, and it is a journey. When you start off in that first episode, you do not know where we're going to be by episode 6. It's very, very different, certainly not something that I was expecting. I don't think anybody could really predict a storyline like this. As James Powell says, Terry has raised the Titanic. I think in a sense, there is that element of doing something that was completely unexpected, but an incredibly difficult job. There's actually a movie called Raise the Titanic. It's actually pretty darn good. The only bad part of the film is that the Titanic also sinks at after they raise it.
Of course.
But I think that honestly, this particular accomplishment here felt as if it were that much of an operation. It does not feel as if it was something that they wrote in 5 minutes. This must have been like a year's worth of work. And I can't wait to hear what Robert's interview with Christopher Monafet is going to be like, because as far as I'm concerned, I think this one might be my favorite episode. Julian, do you have a favorite episode so far?
Emotionally, I was surprised, genuinely surprised, and really felt emotional for the last episode when Ro shows up. I thought that was particularly cool. I love the way that they've naturally woven the story so that different characters show up when they should. They're not artificially thrown in to go, oh look, we've got to have them in here because they're who they are. It's like, no, we get to them because we need to get to them at this point in the story. It's important for the story that just the way they've been able to, like they did with with Ro being the one who was running Worf and Raffi, and ends up coming and giving the information, so she carries the story forward at the same time as being able to resolve the outstanding emotional weight that was standing between her and Picard, and so that's why it's so good, that it's the way that they're weaving the stories in and the characters in at the right times, not just throwing them in when because you want to. So they just
no, you make a very good point about that. And we are seeing a lot of things that I think are pretty significant. For example, the Pop Goes the Weasel cue is another thing that if you've never watched Star Trek before, everybody's going to recognize that tune. And having things in the episodes like that where a person can recognize it and feel as if they're part, kind of being part of the solution, or being this person who's also problem solving this. Because as we're all watching this, we're all trying to figure out what's going to happen next and how the crew is approaching the solution to the problem here. And I just love that they did that. It's a recognizable tune, not something so esoteric that we don't understand what it's referring to. And we have another super chat from 200 Watt Studio. How about that call back to the first season, the Next Generation episode, which is what I think I was referring to. We're on the same sync, 200 Watt Studio. I think that's the one he's talking about. Julian and Robert, how satisfying was it to see Riker, a young Frakes? How satisfying was it to see that?
I love seeing it. I love seeing it because, the funny thing, I think what's really interesting in our modern age is everyone gets mad. They call member berries a bad thing. But the thing is, when you're dealing with characters that have a life together, when you're seeing examples of that, Riker, who we know is a musician, he's a trombone player. He plays his bone, and he's the whole thing is that this AI system has been when you find out that the entire Daystrom Institute, the most sophisticated AI of all time, is based on a Sung android, and part of that android brain is data, and that his dreams, and you see it, you see like data cam, and it goes like zzz, all of that is in there, and it all, for me, makes sense. It's all very interesting. And what I find so strange is that nowadays fans want Star Trek to be Lord of the Rings. And Star Trek was always a episodic TV show written by TV writers. And unfortunately, what's happened is the writing has not been the writers, Terry Matalas is a great writer himself. He spent decades working his way up into the TV world, and the people that he works with, whether it's Matt or whether it's Christopher Monfett, who's going to be on the show tomorrow or today, he's working with writers that really care. Like, he's built a writing staff, and he, as a huge fan of whether it's Robotech or Back to the Future, he's thought long and hard about all this stuff. So a lot of writers, and I hate to say it, but in the Hollywood rush to equity and inclusion, they want to hire people based on things not on their experience. And there's been a lot of, like, the great Walter Mosley, you know, one of the great black novelists in America who created Easy Rawlins that Denzel Washington played in the movie Devil in a Blue Dress. He came on Star Trek. He conveys a story about, he talks about a racist cop, and because he uses bad language, a black man who's one of America's greatest novelists, who's on the Star Trek writing staff, left because somebody called HR on him for using the N-word. And it's like, the problem here is that, do you not know who you were working with? One of the great black novelists in America today was on the Star Trek staff, and some young whippersnapper called and told mommy on him and got him fucking fired. This is what's been going on at Star Trek. And now you have a group of people that Terry, because you can't trust anybody. Everyone now is a jackbooted, telltale thug. And what Terry did was he brought in a group of people that knew exactly what they were doing, that he could trust, all different kinds of people, and say, okay, we're going to write a great season of Star Trek. And I don't have to worry that the thought police are going to come and get me. Which, by the way, has been Star Trek's problem since, well, more so since 2017. This is a story that is being told that's about Star Trek and the franchise and everybody in it. And my God, talk about equity and inclusion. Come on. Who is not in love with Sidney LaForge?
Oh, those girls are so beautiful. They are.
Oh my God.
Beautiful.
And you know what? No one has to go, oh, we're black. Because no one ever said that before in Star Trek. You know why? Because nobody cares. In the 24th or now 25th century, when you have aliens on your ship, do you really care about no one cares about the color of people's skin. It's all about how great they are as people. It's about what Martin Luther King said, the strength of their character.
Absolutely. And Dustin Cole, for another $5 super chat, you guys are so generous tonight, says, I would have lost a ton of money betting on the thing stolen from Daystrom being genius. Yeah, I would have lost money too. Julian, did you think that that's what would have been taken? Because after all, remember, they were looking for something that was a weapon, something that was more powerful than what originally would look like they had stolen. Julian, did you think that that's what they were going to take?
Yeah, I'm still trying to rack my brain on how they're going to use his mortal remains for whatever nefarious purposes they have.
And why they might want Jack.
Yeah. Some sort of combination of the two. Glenn Mark's back with
Hey, Glenn.
550 New Zealand. This may have already been posited. What's the bet? Deanna Troi is actually a changeling. Yeah, I'm kind of hedging on that one too myself, Glenn Mark.
She's not.
Robbie,
I'll just flat out say. I mean,
no!
I think at the beginning of the episode, Vatic said, "Are we going to go? Let's go find these people." And here's the thing. I think the relationship between Deanna and Riker has been such a through line through this story. I would hope everybody would trust that they wouldn't do something like that, because Riker losing his son and running away from Deanna, I don't have a problem saying it's not a spoiler because it doesn't have it's really Deanna. And it matters.
Yeah, I think it is pretty important because, although she's been on his mind obviously constantly because they're married, but, clearly his family and his family's welfare are on his mind as he's away from them. And we know this because from the very beginning he talks about it, and
Yeah.
the aw shucks episode where he's like, gee, Jean-Luc, don't you see the resemblance between you and Jack? Oh shucks, ma'am, kind of thing, where very clearly he was kind of in a very nice way telling Jean-Luc, admit to the obvious, this is your kid. But there's been a lot of emphasis on the idea of family. And, this makes perfect sense that Starfleet officers would have families who would go into Starfleet, and that their lives and where they're located and the different things they do are going to affect one another.
Yeah.
And I think that Star Trek has always shown that, but it is important to be reminded of it. I know on I think it was on Deep Space Nine, when I can't remember the guy's name, but I think he was on another ship and then he ended up on Deep Space Nine with his wife, and their whole relationship has been kind of like shown in on Star Trek, and I love that they continue to do that. I hope I'm saying the right way. O'Brien and his
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah.
Keiko.
Keiko.
And,
And they were very specific to
Miles.
show that relationship through the years. And we need to see things like that. We need to see relationships and families like that, because that is realistic, where
Yeah.
she has her concerns about everything. And he's trying to accommodate her. And he has one of the most important jobs on the ship. And I know he was responsible for the transporters and everything, but he's also responsible for other stuff too. So he's pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, the people who run the transporters are like so important for security, right? For the ship.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
if something happens to them, you have a security breach. And we see this in this season. We see right away that one of the persons who was hit up right away was one of the persons who was responsible for the transporters. Once again, another security level that, maybe they don't have guns on them, or they're not, police officers, so to speak, but they are that first line of security. Something beams on without authorization or gets thrown off. So he was an incredibly important part on that, and they kept true to that. We have another super chat here from Dustin. Thank you, Dustin, again for the $2 super chat. Genesis device. Oh yes, that's right, Dustin. You mentioned the Genesis device. We've already seen one birth this season, a beautiful representation of life in space. And it reminded me of the Abyss for some reason. I'm not quite sure why.
No, it's very much so.
And I thought it was just beautiful. Julian and I, of course, watched it along with many of the people who are here in the chat now. Certainly just an incredible experience. Why was it important, Robert, for them to have a first contact, if you will, if this is actually a first contact, but let's say hypothetically for practical purposes, this was a first contact for them. Why was it important for them to have a first contact in the season?
Well, I think they needed awe and wonder. I think at the end of the day, the you go back to to seek out strange new worlds and new life and new civilizations. And the fact is that even in the midst of whatever battle they're in, whatever Vadic's deal is and whatever, they found themselves the awe. You can't forget that Star Trek is about the awe and wonder of the cosmos, the awe and wonder of human potential. And that when all seems lost, I mean, at the end of the day, even Riker, there's that great moment where he's like, oh, we're all going to die. And even he's like, wait a minute. What you're saying is correct. And if we did this, we might get out of here. And even and then it turns out that you think the darkest storm turns out to be something totally different. And what's really interesting was Star Trek is always about the potential of possibilities. That you're like, the world's going to end. Is it though? I mean, perhaps. What if we look at it from a different perspective? I mean, it's the most Star Trekian thing ever. And they don't even know. Like Dr. Crusher's is like, this is like we're like an amniotic fluid of maybe what we're seeing is a birth. Who knows? And I think one of the great, for me as a lifelong Star Trek fan, it's meant so much to me. And William Shatner's 92nd birthday was 2 hours ago. It was March 22nd. the thing about Star Trek that has carried me literally through my entire life since I was 5 years old is that at the end of the day, there are always possibilities. And that idea, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, but even in the original series, that if you have a great group of competent people that know their jobs, and you can put as a leader, puts trust in his crew. And it was so Star Trek-y in the end of episode 4 as they're getting out of that nebula. They're riding that wave. That even the bridge crew, the minor, which, by the way, I love the bridge crew on this show. They're so good. And they play into what goes on. But it's the idea that Star Trek is about being the best people we can be. It's not easy. And you have to step up. You have to work hard. But to me, what Star Trek has always been about is be the best people you can be. And what we're seeing is all of these people that have the emotional connections and they have life behind them. And life doesn't always work out well. I mean, as a matter of fact, it doesn't work out well at all because we all end at some point. So life kind of sucks. But while we're here, we have to enjoy it. This season of Star Trek is all about the connections we have with the people we love and how important it is to continue those connections. And what it means to be a father to daughters, or a father to a son, or a husband to a wife, and how those connections work and mean something to us. And that's what Star Trek always did. In an action-adventure, allegorical storytelling context, it addressed what does it mean to be human? And that's what this season of Star Trek is doing, man. And the emotion of it, yes, it's got this great Tom Clancy techno thriller, and we get all this great member-berry fan stuff, but this is a very emotional season of television about real people with real concerns. And that's why it works.
Mm-hmm. And Dustin Cole, I think you weren't too bad in the guess that the Genesis device might be there. I could see someone wanting to steal that and do something with it. So that's a good guess. Dustin Cole. And of course, we have another super chat from Glenn Mark for 550 New Zealand dollars. Says, when you said thought police, Rob, I thought of the episode of Voyager. Random thought.
No, I know what you're saying. But no, I don't mean it that way. You know, I mean it more in general. I mean, look, we're getting a very pulp science fiction, action adventure, Tom Clancy, Hunt for Red October, Crimson Tide, techno thriller. And that's what it is. It's like, like in Sum of All Fears, there's the Super Bowl, someone's going to put a nuke in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's what this season's all about. It's about that techno thriller. But the real question is who is doing it and why are they doing it? And why is it Federation centric? Because why aren't they getting all the other powers involved? Why is it Federation centric?
Yeah, this is a really good question. The mystery of it is killing me. But Robert, as we're even talking, there are even more members and fans talking about how amazing the episode is. They're actually watching it as we're talking about it. And here's Wolverine Snicket who says, I just watched episode 6. Wow. It really is an episode that is just gone so beyond it's not that I wasn't expecting it. I just wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. And it's just hits so many good points on the Trek experience. This is certainly quite an accomplishment. I just want to say I'm so happy with the production team for what they did and putting all this together and really giving us this quality entertainment we've been wanting for so long from Trek and kind of been praying and hoping for. And every time, a season comes around or a show comes around, we keep saying, well, maybe it'll be this, and we're hoping it's this. And this is exactly what we were talking about and what we wanted to see in an episode and in a season even. But it really is something else. I also wanted to mention, we did see Worf, and of course the trailer had said something about him being a pacifist. And, I thought about what it meant for him to meditate and then the need for him to meditate. and him being able to be injured but recover from that. And perhaps something like that, I don't know, but perhaps something like that, being able to do something like that does require a significant amount of meditation, a certain level of concentration for him in order to survive an attack. And since the Klingons, fighting and having that ability to fight is so important, we have to imagine that many of them get injured, and that just even for them to survive in general, many of them would have to have developed this over time. What are both of your thoughts on that?
Well, we've seen that the Klingons, I believe, have an awful lot of redundancies in their bodies organically anyway, because of the environments they were brought up in, and so it's that part of, for them to survive in harsh environment that we assume that they probably had coming up, just evolution as far as that part. But yes, their fierce nature really, needs to be evened out by an ability to kind of center oneself with meditation. Yeah, so
I mean,
it makes perfect sense to me.
I love the fact that, like the samurai, the way of the Bushido honor, call it what you want, that Worf's centeredness makes him even more dangerous and more effective as a warrior. The fact that he does not give in to anger. He's like, I'm much more disciplined now. I mean, he's more dangerous than he ever was. And he also like, Worf always had a sense of humor. And what was funny was he knew he was funny. But the rest of the world, the rest of the universe didn't know that Worf was as witty as he was. They saw him differently. But, in the third season episode when he says, good, nice house, good tea, or good tea, I don't remember, good tea, nice house. Worf is a man of culture. People denied, no one ever gave him the credit he deserved, but he's a man of two worlds. He was raised by Russians. Worf is probably the most culturally aware of all of Star Trek characters. And what I love about this season and the way Michael Dorn is playing it is he knows he's fucking funny. He knows. And when he says stuff like this, and when he goes, well, I'm a pacifist, he knows Riker's going to be like, wait, what? He's goading Riker. And it's so great because Worf has always been with his, he's 100% Klingon, but he gets it. And the funny thing about Worf is it's just like Spock. Spock, everyone's like, people who don't understand Star Trek think Vulcans have no emotions. No, they're the most emotionally fucking volatile people in the world. But with the application of the teachings of Surak, their entire culture learned to govern their emotions. But they're very well aware of them. That's why Spock can be really funny at times. Just like Worf. In the same way, in terms of people of two worlds, they might understand our world better than we can. And the way Worf is being played this season, he's way ahead of us. And Riker's, I love the scene when Riker goes tonight, he goes, well, you used to push back. Riker's like, because I wasn't as good as you. He didn't say that, but by his non-answer, he's like, but now I'm smarter. And Riker's like, come on, man. And it's very sophisticated writing.
It is very sophisticated writing, and I think we all had a chuckle when we heard Worf say something that is quite typical of superior Klingon technology. I think KCY has mentioned it in the chat.
Oh my God, how great was that?
It was so satisfying to hear Michael Dorn say that, and he looks amazing, as he always has as Worf. And it's funny because my sister-in-law was talking about why did they do that to Michael Dorn, and then she saw him and she's like, hey, he looks incredible.
He looks incredible. I mean, my God, the Klingon makeup, he's 70 years old.
Yeah.
He looks amazing. Hasn't missed a beat. He's more dangerous than ever because now he's a pacifist. But if you fuck with him, he will kill you.
Well, when he says he's a pacifist, I interpreted that as him saying that he wasn't going to challenge other Klingons to fights. And, I think that might be his pacifist view. However, that doesn't mean that if he isn't put in a situation where he needs to fight, that he can't take action. As we saw, all we saw was the blade it was almost all you saw was the blade, and you could hear the blade. And that also was very satisfying to hear the blade kind of slicing and dicing. That was also very good. And I have, talked in the past about how important it is for many of us to see, or at least for me to see, protection, that essentially what Starfleet is. Not only are they discovering different things in the universe, but when needed, a lot of times they're called on to provide protection for people in the galaxy. And, that is also very important to know, that they are there and can be called on when you need assistance. And we see this time and time again. It was very interesting to see that they will come to aid. And, it is a sacrifice for these officers. We have another super chat here. And guys, thanks so much for the super chat. Son of John says, well, I guess the mystery of Jack has been explained. Has it? No more theories of Jack being a sleeper hybrid Borg, human, or Pa-Waith. I don't think we know yet, Son of John.
I would say no. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Some say.
Yeah. Yep.
Did you want to say something, Julian?
I was just going to say more to follow on that. As the story progresses, we'll find out more. Yeah.
And Glenmark for another 220 New Zealand super chat. Thank you, Glenmark. George looks amazing too. He's a handsome man. It certainly. And then we have another one. Oh, okay. Sorry, Geordie.
I was wondering if that's.
No, I mean, yeah, it was like no. I mean, LeVar Burton, he was great. I mean, what's so great about all the writing in the show is that the characters in TNG were very, I thought, one note, even more one note than the original series. They were written as archetypes. Now they're being written as people, and to see the actors, I mean, LeVar Burton was Kunta Kinte. And if you weren't around, I was 10 years old when I saw Roots, the miniseries. It was like Alex Haley's Roots that miniseries was the most important TV show as a young kid, a young white Jewish kid in Seattle, seeing Roots. It was incredibly moving and it shaped my life. And the fact that they cast LeVar Burton as Geordi LaForge, but to be honest, they really never made him a great character. He's what they've given him in this episode, and the conversations he's the relationships with his daughters. I'm like, oh my God, they've taken LeVar Burton, they've given him a chance to act, and he's become a director and a writer. And reading Rainbow, they have justified all of the unjustification of his character. They made him a real person, a real man, a real father, a real family man. I loved what they did with LeVar Burton and Geordi LaForge in this episode. I thought it was amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
and they were kind of stuck in there, during the run of TNG and stuff. They had to deal with the episodic nature of the show, and so all those characters had to kind of reset every episode. For the most part,
But he never got anything really great. He never got an Inner Light episode about Geordi LaForge. He never got that.
And what does it mean? And something, Julian, you make a good point about this. What does it mean when you have a season that isn't an anthology season, but more episodic? Am I saying the right thing?
Yeah.
Where each episode depends on the next one, and then that depends on how does that change the experience? Because in your what do you think, Julian and Robert, especially for Star Trek, because we haven't had anything like this before, have we?
Well, the serialized thing that we're seeing it's running the whole. It's running through the series, so there's all the same
Yeah.
type of themes running through the series, much like with DS9 originally, where they had to do a hybrid where it was some episodic things, but within there you had a season-long thread that was running towards a climax at the end of the season. And when I heard that they were going to try and do that for Discovery and the others, I was like, well, why aren't they getting the writers from DS9? Because they knew how to do it. And that was part of they got rid of that institutional knowledge of people who had worked on Trek, especially all those Berman era people who knew Trek. And it was like they just didn't want to have anything to do with them at all. And they kind of, cut their foot off to spite themselves, because they wanted to do something different. And it strikes me that, Terry is, again, another example of the great creators that came out of that Next Generation, that Berman era.
Ron Moore, Naren Shankar. I mean, if you look
Renee Echevarria,
if you look at the people that came out of, and not to toot my own horn because it wasn't just me, but if you're a physical media fan, I spent 3 years of my life making documentaries on the making of the Next Generation and Enterprise. One of my favorite things that we got to do, and it is so funny to say, but if you think about the movie Valley Girl, which most people might laugh at, I did a piece with Dave Parker and the rest of the guys at MGM. I had this idea that let's get characters in a room, or people in a room, like Martha Coolidge, the director of Valley Girl, and Nicolas Cage. We'll put them in the Central or the Viper room at the time, and we'll just have them talk. And Mr. Carson, my compatriot from MGM, he said yes, okay, and it was great. And so I said, for the Star Trek documentaries, wouldn't it be great if we had like an inside the writers' room where people would sit down? And by the way, we pioneered this. It became a series later, but it was our idea, and I will stand by this. They ripped us off. So on the third season of the Next Generation Blu-rays, we decided to bring back Ron Moore, Brandon Braga, Renee Echevarria, and Naren Shankar. And I and Roger Lay, we got Seth MacFarlane, way pre-Orville, who's the biggest fan of Next Generation ever. He was already richer than God because of Family Guy and everything he'd done. We reached out to him and we said, hey, would you host this? And he did. He came in, and so if you watch the third season Blu-ray of Star Trek, we got Seth MacFarlane, to the biggest Next Generation fan in the world, one of the most successful people in Hollywood, to host a conversation with the 4 core writers of TNG from the 4th season on. And it was, I have to say, I mean, all we did was come up with the idea. They brought the noise. They did the work. We just shot it. It was amazing. And watching these guys, all of whom, Naren Shankar went on with CSI and all that, Renee Echevarria, the 4400, Brandon Braga with everything from Threshold to the Orville. I mean, all of these guys have shaped genre television for the last 25 years. And they talked about it. And watching them, their thought process, they really took the time and delved into what made Star Trek great. And they, again, I mean, Ron Moore, after Star Trek, made Battlestar Galactica and Outlander. Amazing work. It's incredible.
And Son of John for $9.99 super chat. Thank you so much. Son of John says, "See, you say that the
I think you mean so.
I'm sorry.
So I think you mean so. It's a typo.
Okay.
I know they're right next to each other.
You say the Jack mystery is not over, and I will give the famous Spock raised eyebrow. Fascinating. Also, Geordi, Starfleet has been compromised, and Geordi says, I can't help you. So funny.
Can't help you. It's like,
Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Robert, first of all, thanks for coming onto the show off the fly.
I was so excited. It's funny because I sometimes watch live, but I never jumped in or anything. But tonight, I was like, I just wanted to see what I couldn't help myself. I'm like, oh my God, what are people going to say?
Well, you're always welcome, and I'll send you the link if you want to come on the live next time. You're more than welcome to do so. But I did just want to thank you for coming on because Julian and I have been enjoying doing these live watch parties. It's been so much fun, and I think a lot of the members here and the Burnettwork have been enjoying it as well.
Oh yeah.
Discovering all this stuff together and seeing everybody's responses about wow and how impressive and great it is. It's like we're all watching it together. So
well, fandom talking about things they love. Go figure. Isn't it great?
Exactly. But Julian, I did want to ask you if you have any last thoughts, or Robert, if you have any last thoughts before we wrap this up tonight. A special 3-hour live watch party for Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 6. Any last thoughts from either of you before I end the show?
all I can say is I like it. I want more. Give me more. Keep it up. So.
All I can say is it's just fun, and it gets more and more fun. The stakes get bigger and bigger and bigger, and I can't say much. Having seen it, all I can say is they really stick the landing, and I think I want to say it's episode 8. What I love about Thematic, I mean, we didn't talk about, I loved Amanda Plummer's, her pre-title performance, chewing the scenery. I mean, I think she was great. What I will say about this season is they really do make her sympathetic. And when you find out why she's doing what she's doing, you have to go, fuck. And that's really interesting. And I think that says something about the writing of this season of the show. And it's funny, I keep waiting to see all the contrarians who are, I never got accused of sexism or transphobia except from other Star Trek fans. I'm like,
bless you.
Really? And
I don't get that.
It's been very interesting. It's been very interesting to see that. I'm like, wow, my entire raison d'etre is about inclusion and representation and all that, but it's been really weird because I've been I hate Star Trek Discovery, and I've hated Picard seasons 1 and 2, but the proof is in the pudding, man. You know what? I don't have to tell you to like it. If you are watching a great story well told, you know it. You don't need anyone to tell you that it's good. It's self-evident.
Absolutely. And certainly this, as I said before, my last comments on this is how emotionally invested I've gotten into this journey in this season. I haven't really been emotionally invested in a season like this before. And that is something that I think might be somewhat more groundbreaking for my personal experience so far in this. And also, as I said, some of the characters I'm not going to say I judged them, but the Jack character, I was very skeptical about him, didn't know what to think about him. And a lot of my opinions have changed about him. And I think that's kind of important when you can be presented with a character. You're not quite sure what to think of this person. And now you have a better scope of what's going on. Regardless of what the outcome happens for him, I do actually wish him the best. And I think that we're seeing certainly these performances that are so entertaining, make sense in the context they're told, but also keeping us engaged. And the final thing that I was going to say is this is the first season I've ever seen where we have to, or at least need to look at those panels, which I haven't been looking at the panels, but.
You mean in the end titles?
Correct. And certainly every single episode, they have greater and greater meaning. And certainly that's not anything. I'm not saying that the previous seasons and episodes didn't do that, but this particular season, I'm noticing how important.
Oh, no, they didn't do that. I mean, the end credit sequences are full of insight. It's really good.
And it reminds me of I like murder mysteries as well, and they used to have in some of these murder mysteries they'd have clues like, Morse would have Morse code, and sometimes they would tell you in Morse code who the killer was or give you a clue. And sometimes they'd have red letters at the end of Masterpiece Theater where they would have the red letters, and the red letters, each red letter would spell out a clue. And I think that this panel, it's obviously the panels are much more complicated and scientific than Morse code and the red letters, but it reminds me of that. I think it is very interesting trying to get the viewers even more engaged, be more observant. I'm kind of curious as to someone who had never even watched Star Trek, what they would think when they saw those panels. Like, well, do you see that on that panel? It clearly says something. It's got to be important. I think it's very interesting to pull us in as if we're part of the crew, like we're part of the people who are solving this problem. It's very engaging, somewhat more immersive to me. And I think that that's something that also might separate this season from other seasons of Star Trek that I've ever seen. So it just adds to the enjoyment. And mind you, I could watch these episodes a million times and I may not get everything the first time. So after maybe the fifth time, I'll notice something and say, oh, okay, that's what that was. It still doesn't stop me from enjoying it. And it tells you when a season or episodes have rewatchability like these do, it really is something that we're going to enjoy for a long time. So I'm just so pleased as punch. All of you who turned out, thank you, Tom Jr. Jackson. We are all goof people, my moderator, collaborator, and friend, and everybody who's here tonight in the chat. We so appreciate you, all the generous super chats here in the community. It's so wonderful being able to do this with you. So with that being said, and it is 5 o'clock in the morning, I have to end the broadcast, but everybody, it's been such a pleasure to hear all of your comments and concerns and thoughts and ideas about what's happening. This is one of the most exciting seasons of Star Trek we've ever had. And to be able to do it right here on the Burnettwork with Julian, of course, and of course, Robert joining us tonight, such a special treat. This has been such a highlight for me. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And guys, remember, live long and prosper, obviously. But also remember, everybody, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Cheers.